Hey guys, it is me. It is TK Barlow from the Barlow Group Tax and Accounting Firm. How are you today? So I hope that you are out there crushing your goals and making your dreams come true. So listen, I'm going to be looking at this screen and this screen, all right? What we're going to talk about today is when should you become a S Corp? Because I get a lot of people asking this question, and because this is my favorite subject. I love S Corps. I love being able to share and help entrepreneurs understand when the time is right, when is the time right to become an S Corp, and how that will benefit your business because there are a lot of benefits, all right? And along with the benefits, there are a lot of things that you have to know in order to maintain your S Corp, all right? So let's dive in. The number one question, or the number one thing I always hear is people say, my tax preparer or my CPA or my bookkeeper or somebody told me or my friend said that I should be an S Corp. And so when people advise that, sometimes they don't tell you the other side of the coin that it takes to become an S Corp, and should you even really be an S Corp? Like, what is an S Corp, right? So let's dive in it, guys. So an S Corp is a tax election, first of all right? It's not a business entity. You know how you have an LLC or you have a partnership. That is not what an S Corp is. An S Corp is not a business entity, but it is a tax election. It is you telling the IRS, you're saying, hey, IRS, I want to be taxed as an S Corp, all right? So an S Corp is a tax election. It is not a business entity, all right? And you can be an LLC or you can be a corporation and elect to be an S Corp with the IRS. So you can be an LLC, elected, you could be an LLC and have the S Corp election. All right. So I just want to make sure that that is clear, first of all, because this election is going to change how you pay your taxes. So it's going to change how your income is treated and how self-employment tax and how much self-employment taxes that you owe. So when you're taking this S Corp election, what is happening is you're telling the IRS, I don't want to be taxed like this anymore, but I want to be taxed in this fashion. So you're telling the IRS how you want to be taxed, all right? So why do people even become an S Corp in the first place? What is the big deal? So when it comes to an S Corp, the biggest benefit that you see within your business is going to be on the self-employment taxes. Okay. So now when I prepared many business owners taxes, I prepared many LLC single member taxes or sole proprietors, right? And so when I'm filing they're making the money. Okay. So they have a profit from their business, and this profit is going to flow to their taxes, right? So when I'm doing their taxes and they may have had, a $10,000 in profit that they now have to file taxes on. So they're going to file the federal, they're going to file the state taxes if that is applicable for them. But when you look at the lines, it's going to be another line that says self-employment tax, right? And sometimes that self-employment tax number can be so big, y'all, and the client may owe in taxes. They're going to owe, right? So the final number when it says, their total refund or their balance, when they see that number that's in that balance, that number is huge because it is also calculating that self-employment taxes. And so when I'm giving them the breakdown of their taxes, they're like, TK, what is going on? Why do I owe so much? Then I have to explain to them, you owe because you have this net profit from your business. And because you have that net profit, it's going to generate a self-employment taxes, which is like 15.3%, right? And so when I'm breaking this down to them, I have to point out that self-employment taxes. And most times when that self-employment tax can be from like 3,000 to like, I've seen it from 3,000. I think I've seen 1,000 a little bit here and there, but the largest I've seen is like, 16,000, 20,000, because the client is bringing in, they have a large net profit. So from that large net profit, they're going to be taxed 15.3% off that amount, which is going to be in self-employment taxes alone. So when I'm seeing these numbers, then I realize, okay, this person can definitely benefit from taking that S-Corp election, because off the bat they're gonna save, at least like 17,000 by just switching over to taking that S-Corp election. All right. Because again, that 15.3%, they are going to be taxed on their entire net profit. Okay. So as an S Corp, the thing is this, that when we're looking at that, a lot of people would like to promote, okay, this is how much you're going to save. You don't have to pay this in taxes, blah, blah, blah. But they don't tell you the other things that you have to consider in order to maintain, the S Corp. And so one of those things is that if you are operating as an S Corp, you have to pay yourself a salary, which that is going to be taxed, but it's not going to be taxed as much as that self-employment tax, right? So that is why you have to kind of consider and calculate it to make sure that taking that S-Corp election is going to make sense for you in your business, because you do have to put yourself on payroll. So if you're just seeing, like $1,200, $2,000 in self-employment taxes, then you have to say, okay, is this going to be beneficial for me? Because when you take that S-Corp election, you have to put yourself on payroll. With payroll, you have to pay payroll taxes, and then you have to pay the whatever payroll software that you're using. If you're using like QuickBooks, Augusto, one of those, like whatever programming you're going to use. And then because you're taking the S-Corp election, your taxes are going to be separated now. So that's another whole separate tax filing that you have to do, which can run you from like $800 to about $1,500, depending on where you stay and who you go to prepare your taxes. So you have to make sure that these additional costs is not going to outweigh that self-employment tax that you've been paying. So if you're paying like, $1,200, $2,000 a year on self-employment taxes, is that going to be more or less than what you have to pay in payroll taxes, the payroll software, the tax filings for it, and I already said payroll taxes. So yeah, so you have to make sure which is going to be greater and make sure that it works for you, right? And then you're going to need to have some type of bookkeeping system in place to track all of these things, right? So you're looking at bookkeeping, you're looking at a tax cost, you're looking at the payroll cost. But if you're the person that's saying, I'm seeing like $10,000 a year that I'm paying in self-employment taxes, then of course switching over to or taking that S-Corp election is going to benefit you, because all of the other costs are not going to add up to, $10,000, $3,000 a year. So in that case, yes, it would be beneficial. So when we're seeing like all of the TikToks, when we're seeing the Instagram posts about, take the S-Corp election because it's going to help you save in taxes. Yes, that's true. But make sure that you're doing your due diligence and that you are really calculating all of the costs that it's going to take for you to run and maintain your S-Corp. All right. So we have, so as an S-Corp owner, you know that you have to put yourself on payroll. And then the rest of your business profit is not subject to self-employment tax. So what does that mean? That means that if you have, let's say $50,000, right? This is your net income. After all of your business expenses, you have 50,000. And you know that when you do your taxes, you're going to be taxed 15.3% off that $50,000. So what can you do? You can take that 50,000, divide it up, take 25,000 in profit, and take 25,000 as a distribution. This is just an example, okay? So the 25,000 that you take as profit, you're going to be paying taxes on that. You're going to be paying, the payroll taxes, the state and federal, just as a regular W-2. All of the W-2 taxes that you pay if you work for someone else, you're going to pay these same taxes, all right? So the other $25,000 that is left over in your business, you will have to pay federal and state, but you're not paying that self-employment tax on that. So what you have done is you've taken this strategy to where you're able to divide that, and that 25,000 has to be a reasonable salary. But this, just for the sake of our example, for you to understand how you're able to, let me get my calculator, how you're able to really break up this $50,000 plus 13.3%. Let's see. So yeah, so you would actually be saving 6,000. Okay, so if you had the $50,000, you file your taxes, you're going to see $6,750 as the self-employment taxes, right? Because it is 15. Did I do 15.3%? Hold on, guys. Plus 15.3. No. Okay, so $50,000. 15.3% on top of that is $7,650. So if we were to do your taxes and you had $50,000 in net income, right? This is how much was left over in your business. You would be paying $7,650 on that $50,000 in self-employment taxes by itself. We haven't even talked about federal and state. That's only self-employment taxes that you would have to pay, right? So instead of doing that, what you would do is you would take that $50,000, split it up, pay yourself a salary of $25,000. Now you will have to pay the payroll taxes into that. And then you take the other 25, you will have to pay federal and state, yes, but you're not seeing that $7,000 of self-employment taxes. You won't have any self-employment taxes. You will only pay the federal and state. So that is where the savings comes in, right? But how do you know if your business is ready for that? Like, how do you know when you should be looking to even think about this strategy? So a good rule of thumb, like you always want to dive in deeper to do the calculations, but a good rule of thumb is that if you have a net profit that's after your expenses of about $50,000 a year, and you see that this is growing every year, like maybe last year you had 50,000, you're like, oh my gosh, all of this self-employment taxes, and then you see that this year you are still on that same path to having 50 plus as a net profit, then yes, it is definitely worth you running the numbers to see if an S-Corp election is going to be for you or not, all right? So if your S-Corp savings outweigh the cost of, the payroll, the tax filings, and all that good stuff, then yes, you should go ahead and take this S-Corp election, okay? But you also have to ask yourself, are you ready to put yourself on payroll, right? Because that payroll has to be a reasonable salary, okay? And so your payroll can be set up, with QuickBooks or Gusto or something like that. But yeah, so that's with the payroll. But if you're not ready to put yourself on payroll, and if you're not ready to do that consistently, then it may be too soon for you to put yourself on to take the S-Corp election, because you have to have yourself on payroll, okay? So that is about all that I have for you today. But if you want to do to run your numbers, we are offering like a snapshot. The snapshot is $97. That's where we look at your bank statements, we look at your profit and loss, we look at your tax deductions, and we also look at to see if you are in a space or at a place where it's going to be beneficial for you to put yourself on payroll and take the S-Corp election, we can advise that to see, okay, yeah, this is good for you to do right now, or no, you should hold off, and these are the steps that you should do. So we're able to check that if you want us to just look into it and see if you are ready. All right. Now, if you're like, TK, I've been paying to almost $20,000 in self-employment taxes, put me on the S-Corp election, then we are able to go ahead and do that as well. Just set up a consultation and we can take it from there. And we do have a couple of boot camps and trainings coming up about the S-Corp. So if you want to be present for those, just shoot me your email address. You can drop it at the link below, or you can send me an email at hello@tkbarlow.com, and we will help you understand if the S-Corp election is going to be good for you, or if you want to go ahead and take the S-Corp election, we can go ahead and get that form for you as well, okay? But that is all I have for you. In the meantime, cheers to your success, and I will time. Bye-bye.